Hello and welcome to another episode of Walk the Dog Cinema. We are out and about on a nice hot California afternoon. It's not too hot now where doggy won't burn her paws or anything, but we're getting out and about. Did a little walk this morning, but it's been a busy week at work and just getting some exercise for the Roca. She's enjoying herself. Summer, she loves the sun and getting it going. She's kind of a more summer dog than a winter dog at times, but thought get our walk in and talk a little bit of movies. I'm back in my action genre. You know, I challenged myself for 30 action movies this year. We'll see how I go because I'm not too far into this challenge, and I gotta get a move on. But you know, I've done the best Arnold movies, best Stallone movies, you know, best Van Damme. Another question I kind of threw at myself is best Steven Seagal film, and my favorite, or not best, but my favorite. But it just happens to be his best also, and you'd say why you picked Steven Seagal, and kind of wanted to watch kind of iconic guys who kind of were in the 80s. I just had that feel, but with Seagal, kind of harkens back to my growing up years where, you know, he kind of hit the scene. He was different, just like Van Damme. He was different than Chuck. He was, you know, different than the Kung Fu. You know, not a lot of us knew what Aikido was. His movies weren't like super action packed on one level, but like his choreography was really hard hitting and how it came out. By the time this movie, Under Siege, that's what I've picked. It's been a long time since I've actually watched it because I've probably seen the movie 100 times, and I'll explain that story in just a minute. But you know, this is where Seagal hit his height, and at the same time he was already becoming kind of a prick in the industry, and this is kind of his last hurrah too, because after this he kind of did On Deadly Ground, and that movie sucked really bad, and kind of was downhill from there, where, you know, he did Executive Decision, which was a good movie, but he ends up dying in that one. But yeah, so Under Siege, filmed by Andrew Davis, who went on to do The Fugitive, but he also did Code of Silence with Chuck Norris, which was amazing. He did Above the Law with Seagal right out of the gate with him. Andrew Davis, you know, he always seemed to get a lot out of not a lot of action. He's an action director who has some really great set pieces, but I always think of his movies as kind of kinetic. You know, you can go to The Fugitive, you look at this, you look at Code of Silence, you look at Above the Law. Yeah, there's frantic action, but even within the dialogue and the pace of the movie and the tones, they're always kind of frantic, and they just hurtle forward. And so they have this intensity about them, this kinetic energy that's just always driving it to move, right? And that's what I kind of dig about him. After that, you know, I actually don't know what he filmed kind of after The Fugitive. I'd have to kind of look it up. I didn't look it up here, but I wanted to talk more about Under Siege, and that's what we'll be doing. So Under Siege is a great movie from beginning to end. You know, it has a sense of realism to it, even though it is a one-man army kind of thing. Very popular during that time. You know, and the big one with this movie, and the reason I've seen it so many times, is 1992. I was working in a movie theater. I just graduated high school, but it was my job while I was in high school. And this movie came out October. Kind of remember it wasn't really supposed to do much, though. I remember our manager, Sandy, she was talking about how, like, she was kind of excited because Seagal movies always seem to do really good in the area that I lived. And sure enough, I mean, it was kind of a big opening weekend for us. I worked at a theater that no longer exists in the city, but they were a chain of them that got kind of taken over by Regal. They got demolished and stuff. And it would place me, if you know where West Cove or Eastland or Fox Theater, Capri Theater, in those day and age, back then, they were Sanborn theaters, but they no longer exist. Obviously this was many moons ago, but the theater, West Cove, had an auditorium that could seat like 1,200 people. It was ginormous. I had seen some Return of the Jedi there, Hamburger Hill, Pet Sematary, Ghostbusters, Dracula. But obviously working in the theater, we released it in this big auditorium, and we were consistently getting 300-400. I mean, it was, when you see a theater that big and it's still half filled, I mean, you're filling it up, and it was busy. So the movie kind of exploded out of nowhere for a Steven Seagal film, because prior to that, I always had kind of an affinity for Marked for Death. I'd gotten the DVD finally, and then rewatched it after not seeing it for many, many years. And though I like the action, it is just like so cheesy and just kind of like out there that on one level I kind of recognize that it's not that good, and I see why people didn't like it. But this one like kind of grounds him. He didn't have a great acting range. Like I said, there's a showcase in the middle where he gets into a fist fight here, and it's rather brutal with how he like breaks limbs, rips throats out, pushes a guy into a saw. It was always kind of cool for us back in the day, especially like when he kind of hit the scene in the like mid 80s, 86, 87ish or whatever it was, just like Van Damme. He's putting pool balls in a shirt and swinging around and punching people and breaking teeth and cracking arms, and you just see the bones popping out. This is kind of like something we've never seen. And if you're into martial art films or any kind of that stuff, kind of was different. We always joked how he ran in the movies because he kind of can't run very well, but he was kind of like a different action star. Obviously it all kind of went to his head, and he went way out into the deep end. But Under Siege kind of captivates, just like what was kind of cool about the One-Man Army. They try to make it realistic. It kind of follows the Die Hard stuff. It happens on a boat. The terrorists take it over, or these mercenaries to get the nuclear arms off to make money and kind of stick it to the CIA and the shadow government of all that with the USA. And so it has all those kind of tropes, but there's still a little bit of a 90s sensibility kind of digging in, where Seagal, though he's likable in this, he's kind of a jerk on the same level, and a little bit of an anti-hero streak a little bit in there. But he cares about the captain, and you find out why. But I like I said, working at a movie theater, watched this movie a lot, because at the same time I was kind of getting into film school, going to college, starting to go to college and stuff like that. So it's kind of studying film. I was really into action movies at this time. Kind of, I wouldn't say breaking away from my horror genre, but at this point it was really hard to find horror movies. So I was kind of focusing in on action films, and I really got into like John Woo around this time, stuff like that. So Under Siege always has an affinity in my heart. But kind of even watching it last night as an older guy who, and I haven't seen it in a while, I still remark about how it feels realistic, even if there's gobbledygook in there. Some of the script and the one-liners and all that are pretty cringe. Some of the acting is, just kind of borderline. Andrew Davis tries his best with Seagal in one sense, and Seagal thinking he's cool with his kind of sardonic one-note isms, but he's cool because of how he fights and how he like takes care of the situation. But I have to give kudos. Gary Busey is just like way over the top, but Tommy Lee Jones is awesome, amazing. Yes, this is where I come at like some of Hollywood's issues today. They just don't have villains. And I really like Tommy Lee Jones's character in this. He plays the villain tropes in one level where, he's just doing it for personal reasons. It's evil, it's villainous. There's there's implied things that he did back in the day that were out for himself, and that's why he needed to be taken offline. And though they kind of talk about the CIA trying to take this guy out, it's always implied that he was a nut job. It's always implied that he was bad, and the CIA was just using him to direct that badness to do good for us, or to do shadowy things for us that would have been good. But again, it never implies anything but that he's bad. It doesn't go out. He's a villain, straight up and down. He speaks a lot of BS. Even when he speaks within it, I love how Tommy Lee Jones uses like some truths to certain people, but it comes off BS-ery to how his character is, but at the same time it drives his truth. So there's a little context and subtext in there, and it's just great acting. He really kind of steals the show. He I would even contend that a lot of people, because the movie, even I remember when it was at the theater, had some legs, and it went for a while, even like past Halloween and some other movies, and when it got moved to even smaller screens in that theater, whether it was like 200 seats or whatever, you'd still get 180 people showing up. I mean, it was consistently busy for just like weeks after weeks after weeks, and just kind of had legs. And I would say a lot of it wasn't inherently Steven Seagal. I kind of look at it, and I think because Tommy Lee Jones is just a great villain, and it was a testament, like the ending knife fight just was kind of something we'd never seen even during that time. I can't remember a knife fight in the movie quite like how the end one is. It's just kind of up close, and you really can't get what's going on, but you hear the knives like scratching each other, and you see the hand movements, and it all is just kind of captivating just because it is so kinetic and moving forward. And so I always kind of dig it. I dug it last night. It was kind of fun to watch and just kind of see how it was all put together. So tell me what you think of Under Siege. What's your favorite Seagal film? If you don't have one, I get it. He's an acquired taste, but he was an action icon in the 80s, along with the other ones I mentioned, Jackie Chan coming on board, and Van Damme, Arnold, and they kind of had their respective regions. I had heard of Jackie Chan, like I said, in the 80s and all that, and so I kind of picked the five. We could put in Clint in there, Burt Reynolds, but Burt was more a 70s guy, and he wasn't just all action, and I kind of view Clint Eastwood as that. And so you'd kind of pick movies with Clint. He's yes, he's got the Western, but the movies in and of themselves, I wouldn't inherently just say he was an action star. You have the Dirty Harrys and all that, but they're more thrillers and some other scope. At least that's how I kind of take up with Clint Eastwood, but definitely an icon. But I kind of miss out on Chuck Norris here. Maybe I'll revisit that. I have other questions I'm going to ask myself, so Chuck will probably get in there. But anyhow, tell me what you think. What's your favorite Seagal? If you like what you see, please subscribe, and let me hear what you got. Have a good one, everyone.